So today's video is one that I'm really excited about because it's the first one in my series where I'm going to be sitting down and answering your guys' questions. I thought this would be a really fun way to do a Q&A. I posted a while back on my community tab if you guys had any questions. And so instead of sitting down and doing a designated video for all the questions, I'm going to break it up and hopefully answer your guys' questions better. Today's video is actually 3 questions in one. Those 3 questions that I'm going to be answering today are: do I use a planner? Do I plan our homeschool a year out, or do I plan a year out? And how do we record keep? So that is what we are going to be diving into today. If this is your first time here, I am so glad to have you. My name is Dana and I am a homeschooling mama of 4 little ones. And here on my channel, as you can tell, I love chatting all things homeschool, homemaking, biblical motherhood encouragements, and all those things in between. If at any point during my next handful of videos here, if you also have a question, please let me know down below and I'll do my best to add that onto things to film next coming week. Anyways, with all that being said, let's dive into today's questions.
This is the home. Love is the
So the first thing I wanted to talk about in answering these questions is, do we plan a year out for our homeschool? When I first started homeschooling, like a brand new homeschool mama, I really wanted to be the perfectly planned homeschool mama that had the planners, the wall calendars, the color-coded everything, the stickers and everything like that. And I tried really hard, honestly, for puppies. I want to say 2 or 3 years in a row, maybe even 4 years. This is my 6th year homeschooling. So I've tried it a lot with wanting to be a very strict planner, and it just hasn't worked for me personally. I've also tried to have every subject mapped out a year in advance, everything locked in, so I always knew what to purchase, what to be looking for, and things like that. But something I've learned really, I want to say the past 2 years, is that life never really matched my plan. And I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of embracing whatever season you are in. But I've learned that life will never match what we plan for, because we can't always plan for those little things. I mean, some years I had a newborn. Some years there was toddlers running around getting into all the things, and sometimes I was in a season of just intense morning sickness where I couldn't do anything, so the plan had to be thrown out the window anyway. And in some seasons there were just seasons of grief where mama wasn't feeling my best, so we need to step back, and therefore the plan would kind of go out the window for a little bit. And so life changes and things are always changing. And every year I've learned that it holds something brand new, a new season, a new thing to get used to, a new thing to adjust. And those formal schedules just made me always feel like I was constantly behind. At some point I did have to just let it go, like the idea of a perfect scheduled homeschool. And when I did lay that down, our homeschooling actually became much more joyful, because I wasn't measuring really myself against some other standard or against a paper plan anymore. And instead, I could really just breathe, enjoy the process, and most importantly, I could really walk alongside my children with whatever season we were in. And I felt like whenever I did have that planner of a whole list of things that we need to accomplish that month, or even like a year out, I felt like I was feeling before we even started, which really took the joy and stole the joy, honestly, out of my being present, because I was so focused on making sure we hit everything on that to-do list. And I knew it wasn't attainable because, again, every single year that we've started homeschooling, there's been something new, or there's been a new season that we need to get used to, or there's a big adjustment, and even life changes and life adjustments, and it just hasn't worked for me personally. So when it comes to answering the question, do I plan for a year out for homeschooling, is I do not. Anyways, with all that being said, as far as planning ahead, even though I do not plan a year out because it's hard to plan for those life changes and things like that, I usually start researching about, I want to say probably 4 to 6 months out from the new school year. So in the spring or late spring, I'm already at this point looking at curriculum. I'm taking a step back and really focusing on, what are we using now? Is it still working? This is the type of year where I'm always watching reviews and flip throughs. I'm looking at sample pages online, and I'm really praying about what is going to be best for each of my children. But one thing I will mention when it comes to not planning a year out, and something that I am learning right now, is I don't purchase anything until we're very close to starting the new school year. Because as I've also learned with planning and buying and purchasing, while it's wonderful to have everything set in stone and bought and put on the shelf ready for the new year, a half a year out at a time, I found that it ended up costing us a lot of money because there's some things that we might just want to change or pivot. And for example, a good example of this would be some things work really, really well up to a certain point, and then you get to a roadblock and you're all of a sudden, this is not going to work for us anymore. We need to pivot and make changes. But if you've already bought the curriculum, it's like, okay, well, now we've just wasted, however many hundreds of dollars sometimes on curriculum that is no longer going to work for that child and everything like that. So while I do not plan a year out, I do start researching curriculum and planning for our homeschool year. I probably say 6 months out, and then I'm really paying attention to what works, what's not working before buying anything. But I do wait to purchase until really honestly just a few weeks before I want to plan and start our homeschool year. So the next part of this question is, how do we record keep? For record keeping, I have found something that has truly been a huge blessing in our home for me personally, and it's honestly really enjoyable. I love it. And that is reverse planning. Instead of writing out everything that I will do or that we will do every single day, I'm only recording what we actually did. But this has honestly just been so freeing and so beautiful in so many different ways. For example, if a math lesson takes 2 days instead of 1, it's not failure per se, it's just part of the record or part of the process of learning and learning well. If we want to spend an entire morning chasing down a science experiment and researching it well, it still counts as far as our educational and our learning experiences for that day. And reverse planning has been the greatest blessing because it really allows me to pivot and change things as needed. And that being one of my favorite things about it is I can pivot and change as needed without the guilt. This is why I'm a huge fan of reverse planning and not planning that whole year out and then feeling like I'm failing in so many different areas. And it completely releases me of the guilt without having a to-do list to start the day, even though I still kind of do, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But at the end of the year, one of my favorite things about doing reverse planning is I have this beautiful record of all that we accomplished. And I love that so, so much. And it reflects the real learning that took place, not just what I had hoped to check off at the beginning of the year. And this does not mean that I don't plan or have a vision, because I absolutely do. And we'll talk about that later too. But at the beginning of every year, I do have my vision, I do have my plan. And what I should say instead of having a plan is I have goals. And the way my thought process has shifted between having goals and an actual to-do list has really shifted as well. Because if I have a goal of accomplishing this, then it's really easy for me to be like, and I'll meet this goal 5 minutes a day, versus if I just had it on my to-do list of things to do today and I didn't get it done, I would feel like I was behind. So it's just a mindset shift as well. But reverse planning has been amazing. And it's honestly given me the balance that I needed, where I still have goals, we still have structure, but I am not chained to a rigid schedule. And it's overall, the best part is it's just giving me so much peace in our home. So one more thing that I wanted to add into the reverse planning thing is it's just, for one, it's just beautiful. But one of my favorite things to do is, as I already mentioned, I do use it as a keepsake. I end up using just little leather journals like this. This is one that I've had for a year now. And I don't use one page for every single day. I normally split it up into a couple of days for each page, but I love this so much just as a personal keepsake. It's something I'm going to keep forever. I not only have, let me look at our most recent page here. I not only have like all of our lessons for the day, everything written down as far as what we accomplished. I have little things that we did that day, little books that we read, things like that. And I love it so, so much. So at the beginning of the year, when we start our school year, I haven't done it yet this year, and I really need to. When we started our school year, I would say last year, I had this little printable camera, and I put like the little first day of school pictures in here for our reverse planning. This was the first year I started doing reverse planning, and I loved it so, so much. So this is something I'm going to be keeping forever. And I love it so much. I love this journal. Where I was going with that before I got distracted with this is one of the beautiful hidden things about doing a keepsake type journal is we as mamas get to actually see and experience all of the different ways our children learn. So I'm not just writing down in here our academics. I'm not just writing down, okay, today we did language arts, math, reading, we did some science, we did some history, we did all of that. I'm not just writing that down. I'm writing down what we're learning. So the little extra add-ons, which I'll share with you in my next video, I'm writing down like what they're doing for spelling, the things that they're narrating, the things that they dictated back, everything like that. And so once you start writing everything down, you become so amazed at what your children are learning and how much they're learning all day long. This is something that I keep out on my school table all day long until we close the day and I'm tidying the room up to prepare for the next morning, is I keep it out because I'm also writing down read alouds. I'm writing down where we went for the day, whether it be a nature park and things that we learned there. And it's so fun for me to have that keepsake. If the kiddos say something really sweet or funny, I'm writing that in here too, just because it's so fun. So every little thing like that. And I'm even writing down, so for the mornings that we're all in here together and my kindergartner is doing Play-Doh and she's working with other gross motor type activities, I'm writing that down too because it all counts towards what we're doing together as a family and creating that atmosphere of learning together. And reverse planning, it gives me that opportunity to truly see everything that we're learning. And that's honestly been the greatest blessing, is yes, it's freeing to me, and in a way, it holds me more accountable because I'm still writing down everything that we're getting done. So I still need to be able to write down everything that we're accomplishing. So it's given me structure, it's given me accountability, but there's so much beauty because we're seeing that learning doesn't just happen with our core curriculum. It's happening all day long. And I love taking note of that. So the last part of this question is, do I use a planner? And what's funny is I just spent the first part of the video talking about how I do not have a homeschool planner when it comes to our homeschool details. However, I do use a little bit of a planner when it comes to my home management. I love doing it this way. So for my children, is reverse planning their entire rhythms and the way their lives flow and everything they do is in this binder, or I should say book or journal. This is all of my children. Like, I love it so much. I'll say that again, but this is their book. For me personally, I have learned that I also thrive really well with rhythms and routines, but I also just need even more structure and even a more rigid schedule, I guess you can call it a schedule for myself personally when it comes to running the home and how do we manage doing all the meals and keeping up with all of the things, and we're also doing all the homeschooling. So for me, I thrive really, really well off of a planner. So I do use a planner for home management. I ended up getting Wendy's planner from Plan Prep Pray, this one right here, and I use it for home management. And this just really helps me have all of my goals in one place, so I can then go back and see, okay, these are my goals for not even today, but for the month. And what I love about doing weekly or monthly goals over the daily goals is I can pick and choose 5 or 10 minutes here and there on what goals to kind of work towards or to work on. So I'm still not going off of that big to-do checklist on every day, but I am working towards either a larger goal, if that makes sense. So I use a planner for more of home management. I do have a day where, okay, this day I do want to bake bread, and this is the day that I might try to film a couple of videos, and then this is the day this month where I'm going to edit said videos. That's why I do my best to try to pre-film a lot, because I might only have a couple of days a month to film and then a couple of days a month to edit. So those are things that I have to be more strategic with when it comes to my personal planning. So I don't do reverse planning for me personally. That's only the beautiful lives of my children, whereas then I do have to have more structure to run my home well and to use the time that God has given me to the best of my ability, and I can do that better if I have everything written down. And I'm also one of those people where I think that I can do a pretty good job with having a writing list in my head of everything I need to get done and everything I need to accomplish, but that's not true at all. I am not very good at keeping everything in my head and then not being overwhelmed, because I'll either forget things or forget something was happening when it's happening tomorrow, and I'm like, well, that goes our whole week, so I figure out what's happening tomorrow. So things like that. So for me, I've just learned that I have to be more diligent and I have to be more structured when it comes to my own personal motherhood and homemaking journey in order to get done everything that I do need to accomplish. And I feel like I'm much more at peace, I think, with the structure within our home when I do have everything written down and I do have goals to work for and things like that. So all that to say is, yes, I do use this planner for my home management, for our homeschool planning, I use this for my kiddos for reverse planning. And then for the other question was, do I plan a year out? Is I do not plan a year out just because all the life changes. So I hope that helped answer your questions. So for my next video, the last question this mama asked is, how do we schedule various resources that we do use in our home? So our different language arts books and the different math selections, how do we incorporate those into our daily rhythms and routines? So that is what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about all of our family subjects, what we are currently using for this month in September, and how we fit those into our daily routine. But until that next video, I hope you guys have a wonderful day and God bless. Take care. Bye, guys.
This is the home. Love is the lesson. Wherever